And then we are ready to set up our new DOP network. DOP network. And we'll call this RockSim. Okay, let's go inside. So, what do we need? We need a rigid body solver. Rigid body solver. We need a gravity as always. Oops. Gravity force. I'll connect the rigid body solver to the gravity. We need a merge. We'll connect these and these. We'll also need a RBD, packed object. And this will go into the rigid body solver. And now we need our colliders. We don't need a ground plane because we made our own ground plane grid. So we'll have to import a terrain object. So this will be our ground plane. We'll put this into the merge. Make sure the merge is set to collide relationship and mutual. And we'll also need a static object for the ship. Put it in as well. Okay. So let's call this the RBD packed object. Let's call this our RDB rocks. Terrain object will be ground plane. And static object will be the ship. So let's assign these. So ship, we go to the object path. Where are you? Ship geo. Subpath need to be here. So ship geo out. Accept. And then in here, in volume, we go to the proxy volume. And then we'll say the VDB out. And this is a volume sample. Okay. We also need our ground plane, object path, ground plane, subpath, these are out ground plane. There's the ground plane. And we need our rocks. Oh, whoops, I made a typo here. Our BD rocks. Okay. And in here we select our packed primitives. So we go to rock source and then scatter setup. And the scatter setup is our packed geometry. So we select our scatter setup. And there are the rocks. So now if you press play, yep, they just roll on the ground plane. So that's what we want. Let's ghost our other stuff. And let's play again. Okay. So there's an issue we didn't have with our grain simulation, and that is that our ship collider is a little bit messed up, as you can see here. So the rocks are not even hitting the ship on its wings here, it's just a big blob. And if we go to our bullet data and show the guide geometry, so this is the thing that the rocks are colliding with. So this is like a very low poly ship model. And this is not what we want. So we can fix this by checking the create convex hull per set of connected primitives. So it should be fixed now. And as you can see here, it's using the right geometry now for the collider. So if we go back to, say, this frame, we'll see that they are colliding fine now. Yep, so that's looking good to me. So hide this geometry guide again. I'm also gonna do some friction stuff. So on our ground plane, because what's happening is these rocks are placed on our grid, which has bumps and stuff. So gravity is gonna make them roll off, and we're gonna fix the moving rocks later. What we're basically gonna do is we're gonna skip the first 50-ish frames where the rocks are just, you know, falling, shaking on the ground. We're just gonna not use that part. But we can help the rocks not moving by increasing the friction on our ground plane. So we can say friction 5, and we don't want any bounce. And on our ship, let's also add a little bit more friction. So we'll say friction 2 and no bounce as well. Okay. So that's looking fine. Let's do a flipbook of this. So flipbook session 1, frame 1 to frame 100. And let's start this. Okay, so I forgot to turn on my camera view, so I had to do it again. But here's the result. And this is looking cool. The only thing I would change for now is add some more rocks and make all the rocks smaller. So I would like to see some more rocks falling off this ship. Yeah, so let's change that first. We'll do another flipbook, and then we'll get rid of this movement of the rocks at the start. So minimize this. Let's go back to our rock source. We can hide this, by the way. Go in. I'd like to ghost my ship. Press 2. I want to see my ship. There it is. Oh, I have to turn off my rocks in here. Otherwise, that will be in the way. Okay. Go to scatter options. Scatter settings. I'd like to have more points. Go to the P scale. And these can be smaller. And these can also be smaller. But just a little bit. And I'll add some more variation in this. Doesn't really matter that much, but okay. And I'm gonna play around with the global seed settings and maybe the total count settings some more. Because what I basically want is I want to have as many as possible rocks on top of the plane right now. So I will play with my seed, with the count, and maybe also with the P-scale seed. So this way you can change which rocks will be bigger. Okay, so I'll be right back. Okay, so I found a setting that I like, that is looking nice. So let's see what I did real quick. I increased the total count to 1000. played around with the seed, played around with the p-scale and the p-scale seed. So let's take a look. One thing I'd like to check is there could be an issue where, where the rocks will intersect with our rock assets from Megascans. So, I mean, we can fix that by making these ones a collider. So our rock assemblies, we can make those a collider as well, but if they don't really, but if I don't see any weird issues, then I'm just gonna leave it as is. So I was worried about this big rock being inside of this one, but that's not the case. So maybe we're fine. So let's go to our sim. And the reason I went with this one is I love the way that the ship pushes this big rock out the side. So it just pushes it over. There's a big one on the wing here. I believe there's a big one. Oh yeah, there's a semi-big one here. And there's a couple of little ones that fall off. So I'm pretty happy with this setup. So I'm gonna do a flipbook. Oh, it's calculating. So I'm going to do a flipbook of this one. Session 2, I've selected my camera this time. Start. Okay, cool. I love it. Especially this big rock right here. And the other one is pretty cool too. It bounces off a couple of times before it falls off. Yeah, I like this. Okay, so up next we'll get rid of the movement of the rocks, the ones that aren't being affected. And we'll set the rocks up as a collider for our grain sim.